Happy March, everyone. Happy Women's History Month. We have been rolling so far with our 31 Days of Women Scientists, where I'm dressing inspired by a women scientist every single day of March and sharing a little bit about that life of the scientist. You know, teaching you them that stuff that they never taught you in school, because why would we teach about minorities? Anyhow, in addition to 31 Days of Women Scientists, I am also embarking upon probably my most stupidly ambitious project yet. A Women Scientist Quilt. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So, this is going to be a 4-part video series, and I will outline the steps here. Part 1, which is what we're dealing with today, is going to be designing the quilt. So I'm going to talk you through kind of the design of that quilt and what all I want on it. Part 2, coming in next week, is going to be actually cutting out all of those pieces. Part 3 will be finally starting to sew it all together. And part 4, by the end of this month of March, will be finishing it. I don't know which part's gonna be the worst. I can't wait to find out. I will be featuring 20 women scientists on this quilt. And here's the scientists that I've decided to include, in no particular order: Rosalind Franklin, Hedy Lamarr, Mae Jemison, Ada Lovelace, Mary Anning, Marie Curie, Grace Hopper, Marie Tharp, Marie Anne Poult Lavoisier, Jane Goodall, Rita Levi Montalcini, Lisa Meitner, Chien-Shing Wu, Sylvia Earle, Alice Ball, Maria Sibylla Marion, Hertha Ayrton, Jeanne Villepreux, Rachel Carson, and Ida Yonath. Alright, don't worry if you don't know a single thing about any of those women. I will be talking a little bit about them in each of these videos throughout the month, so you can get to know them as well. So, let's get to sketching. Sketchy. So this is gonna kind of be like, oh no, my Apple Pencil is probably dead. Oof, duh. This is gonna be very similar to the way that like you're watching these baking shows and they draw this like really crappy sketch and then they like come in the end and some artist has like done this really nice sketch and you're like, how did you even manage to make this sketch out of there? So, well, that's not even 20 blocks, but whatever. So I'm gonna have various blocks and each block is gonna be like each little scientist in kind of a simplistic two-tone black and white kind of deal. I guess in between, and then each one is going to be kind of like in its own little frame. It's almost like a portrait wall, and then I'm going to have a fancy background. Right. That sounds legit. So that's a general idea of what I want it to look like. I want it to almost be like the portrait wall on my Women Scientist water bottle I have from Cognitive Surplus. Dicks right here. And yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, you'll get a much better looking sketch at the end of this video. Let me show you what fabrics I brought. Let me show you what fabrics I bought. I stormed that Joann's. You like my bag? Is from Ireland. Okay, so for my materials, I have got basically just various shades of cottons. Oh my gosh, various neutral shades of cottons. So just like a black cotton. This is what I'm gonna do all of the faces and hair and stuff outlines out of. I'm just gonna drop these on the floor when I finish with them. And then I got a brown cotton, which might be used for some of the frames or like, you know, the faces of the not white people I feature. And then I have some darker muslin, which is just kind of a dyed cotton or a very simple cotton, and then a lighter colored cotton. So these are just very, like, pretty close in shades to one another, but just a little bit darker, a little bit lighter. And then finally just some actual white. And then for the background, I found this really pretty, this really pretty blue floral kind of fabric that reminded me of like vintage wallpaper. So I thought it would be a good background and almost look like their portraits hanging up on like a vintage wall. So that's the fabric I got. For the construction of this, keep fixing my bangs. For the construction of this, I'm going to be following very similar to what I did in my tide pool table runner quilting video that came out like last summer, where you end up cutting out all of the pieces on this double-sided sticky interfacing, and then so the fabric sticks to one side of the interfacing is sticky on the other side, and you can iron it on to the quilt block. That's how I'm going to do all the faces in theory. We're going to see how practically that goes. Now that we know what materials we're going to use, we kind of have to actually make the faces patterns for the women scientists. And I'll be real with you all, obviously my background is not graphic design, so I'm probably about to do some real sketchy things on the computer to make these faces, these patterns. Please don't judge me. Let's do it. All right, we're just gonna start out in Photoshop, which I don't know if that's the best place to go for this, but we're gonna find out. So let me just start with the woman at the top of my list, Rosalind Franklin. I feel like this is a pretty iconic picture of her. And we're just gonna drag and drop that in here. And if you can't tell, I feel like I need, let me try Illustrator. If you can't tell, I clearly haven't tried to do this before now. So this is happening live in my brain, trying to figure out how to do this. Prior to me having access to the Adobe Suite, I probably would have tried to do this on PowerPoint. The jury holds out onto whether or not I will still attempt to try this on PowerPoint. I'm a janky girl some days. Oh, I forgot to lock that aspect ratio. All the other ones will go much more smoothly after this, in theory. Because I feel like I can do object, image trace. Oh, okay. That is something. That's kind of horrifying. I mean, this would almost work if it was like cleaned up. Oh, wrong way. Okay, so I think if I just kind of stick with this, but then do a lot of cleaning is where we have to go. So let's see what I can achieve, right? Okay, so this is day 2. This is gonna take place over many, many weeks, but new day. I spent most of last night going through and creating all of the images for the 20 women scientists, and let me probably should actually start screen recording. Getting the hang of this screen recording. Record. And recording. Alright, so here they all are. They're not, this is the best I could do. Let me see if I can get this. This is kind of the best that I could do with my rudimentary skills. And as you can see, some of them are like much cleaner than others. So like Rosalind Franklin looks pretty good. Marie Curie looks pretty good. Some of them look not great. So like Ada Yonath and Hertha Ayrton and Marie Lavoisier don't look great. It didn't like curly hair very much. So there's probably a way that I could actually fix this using the computer. But again, as I am not graphically artistly talented, I'm going to, don't kill me anybody who knows what they're doing. I'm planning on taking these images, transporting them to my iPad, and cleaning them up that way. So cleaning up the curly hair, simplifying some shapes. Like Jane Goodall here is missing half of her face, so like drawing in a line for her face. Just cleaning them up and simplifying them using my Apple Pencil, because it's going to be way easier than trying to do it on Adobe Illustrator. Again, apologies if you actually know how to do this in easier fashion. But I think overall they're looking pretty good. I'm pretty excited with that. So I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning them up and we'll see what happens. Alrighty, folks. I can already tell that this project is going to be, I don't want to say nightmare, a hyperfixation nightmare. I was already so locked in and just doing the design, and all I want to do is work on this and get it done and just like chuck all of my other work out the window. But we're gonna manage. Hyperfixations are good and bad. We got this. I finished up the proposed design for how this is all gonna look. So let's take a look. Okay, so here it is in its glory. AI did its best approximation of what the blue and white floral fabric will look like. And here's all the portraits. You can zoom in maybe a little bit to look at each of these. It's gonna be an interesting challenge. I am excited and apprehensive for how this is gonna turn out. Hopefully more on the excited side. Here's the final layout that's going on. I am super excited to start to execute it. And I might just only work on this for the next 3 weeks and never do anything else that I'm supposed to do. Why irresponsible? Why be responsible when you can just sew an absolutely ridiculous women's scientist quilt that's probably going to kill you? I did promise that I was going to talk about some of the women scientists over each video so that by the end of the month you know something about the 20 women scientists on this quilt. So let's start this thing. Number 1 up, Rosalind Franklin, my homie. She's a British X-ray crystallographer and chemist. What work she's most remembered for is her work on the structure of DNA. Of course, she got her data stolen by Watson and Crick, and they are the ones credited with the discovery of the structure of DNA. But without Rosalind Franklin's great work, we wouldn't know as much about DNA as we know today, and determining the structure of DNA was critical for all genetic research that happened since then. So thank you, Rosalind Franklin, for making the rest of genetic research as we know it today possible. Next up, we have Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr was a famous Hollywood actress, Austrian-born, came to America, came known as the most beautiful girl in the world, but she was also an inventor. And one of the big things that she invented was a technique called frequency hopping. This had to do with radio transmission frequencies between the transmission part of the radio and the receiver part of the radio. Frequency hopping was when the transmitter and the receiver would change the frequencies at which they were transmitting and receiving at the same random pace. So it was a lot harder to listen in a conversation because you didn't just have to guess the frequency the conversation was on, you had to guess all of the frequencies they were on in what random order they happened to be in. The idea was going to be used for World War II or military warfare, but it also became really foundational in the application of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and is part of the reason that you don't get somebody else's music when you turn your own Bluetooth headphones on. You get your own, because there isn't interference thanks to frequency hopping and techniques built on frequency hopping. So thank you, Hedy Lamarr, for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. Next up, we have Ada Lovelace. Ada is a British-born daughter of the famous poet Lord Byron, despite the fact that she never actually met him because he got thrown out of the house because he's a terrible person. But she had a real aptitude for math and science, which was cultivated by her mother, and she started working with Charles Babbage on his early analytical engine, which is considered to be the first computer. She took this idea of the analytical engine and saw it as much more than just a simple calculator, saw all of the things that computers could one day do, and also wrote her own algorithm for how that analytical engine would work, becoming what we consider to be the first computer programmer. So thank you, Ada, for seeing computers the way that they could have been used and not just seeing them as a boring old calculator, and for writing those computer programmers, being an inspiration to computer programmers everywhere. Okay, I did just have to do like a brief intermission real quick to show off my dress because it is twirl-tastic. This is a recent acquisition from a company called Princess Awesome. They are a company dedicated to breaking stereotypes in girl and boys clothing, and they have wonderful, amazing science dresses. You guys know how I love my science dresses, and they have pockets. Gemmin'. But this one I thought was really cute. Can you even see it? It's got cats destroying a laboratory, so yeah, just wanted to show off my dress. Back to the women scientists. Mae Jemison, physician, engineer, astronaut, a lot of things on her list. She is known best as the first African American woman in space, and she also had a feature on Star Trek, so that's pretty cool. What she continues to do today is be a tremendous advocate for promoting women and minorities in STEM, so we have to thank her for breaking a lot of boundaries in, the medicine, engineering, and astronaut world, and continuing to help other people break those boundaries as well. Last but not least for today's video, we have Mary Awning, a British-born paleontologist who loved to scale the cliffs at her home in England, trying to find fossils to sell to make money for her family. She is credited with the first ichthyosaur skeleton, the first plesiosaur skeleton intact, and finding the first pterosaur, kind of like a pterodactyl, skeleton outside of Germany. All of these discoveries didn't make her necessarily famous because women were treated like garbage, but helped all of her geologist friends make a lot of money and become famous, and also helped us better understand how old the Earth actually was. Up until this point, people were thinking the Earth is only about 6,000 years old because we read the Bible. But thanks to Mary Awning's great paleontological studies, we learned the Earth was a lot older, and also the field of geology was formed as well. So if you're a geologist, thank Mary Awning for a lot of her work helping geology become a legitimate field. So that is 5 women scientists for today. I'll do 5 each week to cover the 20 that I've decided to place on the quilt, which keeps feeling like more and more every single time I look at it. But quilt design is done. Next week, we're gonna get into cutting it all out, which is probably gonna be harder than the quilt design. So I'll see you then. Please like this video. Stick around to see how this entire insane project comes out, or just to learn about more women in science. And as always, keep it sciencey!